I'm Dave Wiesdock, Sage of Creative Scaffolding.
And I'm Jen West, Professional Rebel of Delight.
And this is Shadow Casting. All right, what is up, audience? Today is a quote podcast day.
Quote podcast.
And I have this dizzying, electrifying quote for us today.
Oh, I love that because I'm feeling animated.
Me too. I'm feeling like a little charged up and excited. I think this is a good quote. So our quote today is from none other than Nikola Tesla. And I think Nikola Tesla probably doesn't need an introduction, but he was around the same time as Thomas Edison, and there's some theories out there that maybe Nikola Tesla actually found electricity or was able to channel electricity before Edison, and Edison took his idea. But I think Nikola Tesla just has some wonderful quotes and theories out there. And this quote is very particular to shadow casting, and I think digs at a little bit more nuance of what happens as we start to become more aware and conscious of our shadows and what happens, and even hints at what happens further down the line as we begin to become even more aware and more conscious and more integrated with who we are. So here's the quote. With ideas, it is like with dizzying heights you climb. At first, they cause you discomfort and you are anxious to get down, distrustful of your own powers. But soon, the remoteness of the turmoil of life and the inspiring influence of the altitude calms your blood. Your steps get firm and sure, and you begin to look for dizzier heights.
That's such a great quote because it can be practical. It could be just actually doing scary physical things, or it can be for life. There are so many different directions you can take that quote.
Well, I would love to just dive in right into the middle of the quote, because that's what really just literally took my breath away for a minute, because I was like, wait a minute, what did I just read? And I had to reread it a couple times. But it was that middle part of, but soon the remoteness of the turmoil of life and the inspiring influence of the altitude calms your blood.
Yeah.
Because it's paradoxical when you get to this height. There's this sort of detached reality where you're connected to what's happening around you, but you're not letting it affect you. And we sort of hint at this in a couple of our podcasts where it's more about responding rather than reacting. And that's what came to mind with this part of the quote for me, is that as you begin to cast your shadow, it's not that life just magically works around you. And it's not that it can't, but oftentimes life just keeps throwing stuff at us. There's challenges, there's opportunities, there's obstacles. And it's really easy, even as we begin to start to understand ourselves and our way of interacting in the world, to go back to that mindset of getting into the chaos and reacting rather than responding. But there's also this part of you that starts to crave that dizzying height, because you realize the more you scale the mountain of your own life and your own self, the more you begin to tap into your own internal power and your own inspirations. And as you tap into those things, the challenges of life begin to have this different energy, and you begin to realize that these challenges aren't there to hold you down, but to help you refine who you are and to cultivate a deeper understanding of self. And when you reach that sort of level of understanding, it's almost like, okay, what height can I climb next? Where can I go next?
It builds a self-confidence. It really does, because you do this thing and it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's scary because you've never done it. And you move beyond that and you look back and you say, I could do that. What could I do next? And here's where it took me. And just taking this literally, I've climbed so many mountains, nothing big like Everest. But here in Colorado, we have 14,000 foot mountains. So I've climbed up to the top of a few of those peaks. And it talks about the altitude calming your blood. And I think part of that is the work to get on top. You're very focused on the one step, one step, one step. And you get to the top and you've made it only halfway because you still have to come down. But there's this part where you stop and you get to take in the view. And you have a ton of view all the way around you, 360. And it's amazing and it's massive. And there's snow and there's grassy areas. And it's beautiful and it does calm. I know for myself, I've done the hard part. I did the work to get up. And now I get to go back down and tell the story. Now I get to do the part, which actually, after you've been sitting on the top, getting back down's the hard part because you've already traversed the terrain and it seems to take longer to get down than it did to get up. So you're only halfway, but you feel like there's something just really calming and opening about being on the summit and making it to that summit. And the fact that you survived and you were able to push through and you come down with a lot more joy in your heart. You're like, wow, that was big and it was beautiful. And what's next? I mean, a few days later, you're like, I'm never hiking again. but then later you're like, no, the view was worth it. Let's go do another one.
Yes. And I want to, we both jumped in on the tail end of that quote, right? The calming the blood and the seeking the dizzier heights. And I just want to make sure that I emphasize that there's the first part of this too. To get to that part, you've got to be willing and have the willingness to jump into the discomfort. Because usually when something is new or hard or scary to us, we feel anxiety, we feel discomfort. And this quote isn't saying to ignore that. In fact, it's almost saying the opposite. It's saying lean into that, go into that. Because as you move through that discomfort, as you move through that anxiety that you're feeling that might be bringing you down, you begin to have this certain sense of inner strength and calm. I think that's where that calming the blood comes from. And it's not from ignoring the anxiety and the discomfort. It's from honoring that and owning that.
Exactly. And what I really love about this quote is not only that it's about the anxiousness, it's about trust of your own power. And that's really where we start, because if we do anything new, we don't know how to do it. And so we have to trust ourselves. And the anxiety comes from, can I trust myself? Do I have the competence to do this thing? And when we've done enough of those, I don't know how, but I can figure it out. And we get to the other side, the self-confidence grows. And then we start to trust ourselves more. And there's less anxiety and there's more excitement of these things that are unknown. Like, what new can I become? What new thing can I grow into? What cool thing can I learn how to do that I didn't know how to do before?
Yes. And I think the challenge for this quote that I'd like to issue to the audience as they start contemplating it is, don't pick the super, super, super scary thing. Pick something small, pick something that's causing you a little anxiety or a little discomfort and lean into that. If it's going to the gym because that's uncomfortable because you've got to change your routine, or it's deciding that you're going to have a difficult conversation with your spouse or your kid or your boss, something that's not super difficult, but just something that you need to address. Lean into the discomfort you're feeling in that situation and see what comes up for you, and see if you just allow the anxiety and the discomfort to be and you don't fight it, what is it trying to teach you? What is it trying to show you? Because oftentimes, if we allow ourselves to listen to that anxiety and discomfort and we give it the room to speak, that's where the calmness comes from, not from fighting it, but from just being with it. And when we can do that, oftentimes we come from a different space of clarity and really empathy. Again, going back to our tagline of celebrating our humanity, this is how we connect it. By leaning into our own discomfort, we allow ourselves to have better, more fruitful and deeper conversations with those around us. And it creates a stronger connection with those people. So give it a try. And as always, make sure to share our podcast out, give it a like, drop that comment, and let us know what you're leaning into today. And until next time.
See ya.